Welcome to reality. You're now on the Code of Mind channel. We are used to living with a sense of progress. Since childhood, we have been conditioned to believe that humanity is developing, that each new generation is smarter and stronger than the previous one, and that technology makes us freer. We believe that everything is moving only forward, into a bright future. But if you stop for even a minute and look at the past, this picture begins to fall apart. It turns out that events repeat themselves with terrifying accuracy, as if someone is pressing a restart button and launching the exact same scenario, just in a new wrapper. Politics moves in circles. New leaders arrive promising change, but decades later we see the same corruption, the same power games, the same revolutions and downfalls. Natural cataclysms repeat in cycles. Droughts, floods, earthquakes. Ancient peoples had their own global floods and fiery punishments. Today we have hurricanes and wildfires that sound just as apocalyptic. Diseases also move in circles. The medieval plague, the Spanish flu of the 20th century, modern viruses. Each generation goes through a challenge, as if the system is testing us over and over again. Even the destinies of leaders and famous figures mirror the steps of others. Presidential assassinations, strange coincidences in dates, identical scripts of their lives. All of this resembles one giant loop. And honestly, it gives the impression that we are not moving forward, but rather treading water, passing through the exact same levels of a game, just with new backdrops and updated rules. One of the most mystical examples of a repeating scenario is the destinies of two U.S. presidents, Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. Exactly 100 years apart, their lives seem to have been written by the exact same author. Abraham Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846, John F. Kennedy in 1946. Exactly a century of difference. Abraham Lincoln became president in 1860, Kennedy in 1960. A century again. This is no longer a coincidence. It is like a formula. And look further. Lincoln was assassinated in the Ford Theater. Kennedy was assassinated in a Lincoln automobile manufactured by Ford. Lincoln's assassin, John Wilkes Booth, fled into a theater after the attack and was caught there. Kennedy's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, conversely, fled into a movie theater and was arrested there. The last names of the assassins also leave no room for mere coincidence. Booth and Oswald, exactly 5 and 6 letters each. Both assassins were killed before they could stand trial, as if someone purposely cleaned up the loose ends. But even that is not all. Lincoln's personal secretary was named Kennedy and warned him not to go to the theater on that fatal night. Kennedy's personal secretary was named Lincoln and also urged the president not to go to Dallas. Both presidents refused to listen. And here is the picture. 2 leaders, 2 centuries, 1 destiny. One was killed during a divide over slavery, the other during a divide over the Cold War. Both became symbols of changes that the system could not allow to happen. This is too clean of a repetition to be a coincidence. This is not history. This is code, a copy-paste inserted into a new version of the program. The history of diseases is another example of how the system repeats the exact same scenario, but each time it adds new details to it. Everything goes in circles, only the tools become more modern. In the Middle Ages, humanity experienced the Black Death, a plague that wiped out a third of Europe. It was total terror. People were afraid to leave their homes, relationships fell apart, and cities turned into graveyards. Back then, there were no medicines, no knowledge, no technology. Man could only pray and wait. After some time, the Spanish flu arrived. 1918, different times already. Doctors, the telegraph, newspapers. But the panic was exactly the same. People hid, cities went into lockdown, and the mortality rate was colossal. Once again, the world was brought to its knees, even though science had taken a step forward. The 21st century. Disease X, another 100 years. New viruses. They no longer spread via ships or move slowly from village to village. They are instantly transmitted through airplanes, the internet, and the news. And most importantly, through fear. After all, the system no longer just launches a disease. It adds a new module to it, the information flow. Panic spreads faster than the virus itself. Notice the pattern. The plague tested humanity on survival. The Spanish flu tested us on solidarity and scientific capability. Modern viruses test our ability to filter information and manage our own consciousness. It is like a program update. Each new pandemic is not just an illness. It is a system update that starts the cycle all over again. But instead of passing through it consciously, humanity repeatedly falls into the exact same fear. And the question arises, how many more cycles do we need to realize that the real virus is not outside, but inside our heads? If you look at human history, you can see that the conflict scenario never changes. Only the backdrops do. Once tribes clashed with spears in their hands. Everything looked primitive. Brute force, rage, blood. But the goal was the same, to destroy the one who was different. Later, muskets, sabers, gunpowder, the roar of gunshots, and the smell of sulfur came into play. But if you look closely, it is all the exact same thing. One human lifts a weapon against another, and at the core lies fear, greed, and a struggle for power once again. The 20th century brought tanks, airplanes, and atomic bombs. Now destruction became mass scale. The scenario remained the same, just the proportions grew larger. Humanity was given new tools, but instead of evolving, it chose the path of destruction. The 21st century brings drones, cyber attacks, and information warfare. We have seemingly stepped into the digital era, but on the level of consciousness, we remain the exact same savages. Only now the spear has been replaced by a joystick, and the battlefield is no longer a forest or a steppe, but computer screens. And here is the most absurd part. Humanity is given a chance every single time. We are given new technologies that could open the door to space, to the stars, to understanding ourselves and the universe. But over and over again, people use them to repeat the old scenario: division, aggression, destruction. You could put it this way: the weapons change, but the script remains the same. Humanity is given an exam time and again, and so far we take it the exact same way. We fail. The human scenario is always built upon the exact same template. First, tension builds up. People accumulate aggression, divide resources, and construct illusions of power. Then, a catastrophe strikes. A war, an epidemic, a crisis. And afterward, everyone says, "That was a great lesson, now we understand everything." But only a few decades pass and the cycle repeats itself. Everything is the exact same, just with new backdrops. The lesson was seemingly given, but it was not learned. Imagine the future. A massive spaceship, gleaming in the depths of the universe. The systems are controlled by artificial intelligence, and every single button is the pinnacle of technology. But what do we see? A pilot steps out of the cockpit and starts screaming at his neighbor. The same emotions, the same primitive shouting as 2,000 years ago in a noisy marketplace. And right there, it becomes obvious. Nothing changes except the wrapper. Technology grows, civilizations build cities and venture into space, but consciousness remains at the exact same level. We continue to react identically, with fear, aggression, and the desire to possess. And this is the key moment. The system gives us updates, gives us tools, but the test is always the same: whether we can step outside the boundaries of the old scenario. So far, the answer is obvious: no. We repeat loop after loop, and instead of learning, we simply live out a new turn of the exact same drama. It is as if someone behind the scenes is writing lines of code, setting missions for us, and watching how we will act. The scenario is always familiar: crises, epidemics, conflicts, downfalls, and rises. Only the entourage changes. Instead of knights in armor, we have soldiers in bulletproof vests. Instead of messengers with scrolls, we have news feeds and social networks. But the lessons themselves remain the same, as if the system is simply restarting the game, providing a new level and backdrops, new technologies, but keeping the same tasks and testing what we will do this time. Will we break into aggression, or will we rise above? Who is writing this script? Is it the collective unconscious, the matrix, the invisible architects of the system? Or are we ourselves rewriting the lines of code in real time through our choice of thoughts and emotions? If we walk out of habit, on autopilot, the cycle will repeat again. We will live out the exact same story in a different packaging. But if at the moment of choice you stop and realize, this is a test, this has already happened, do I want to pass it the exact same way again? There is a chance that the script will change. And then, instead of an endless loop, we will enter a new trajectory, where there is no eternal copy-paste, but the freedom to create our own story. Since our very childhood, we were taught history, not as a memory, but as an instruction manual. We were told about wars, about crises, about conflicts. It would seem that this should have taught us not to repeat mistakes. But look deeper. We were programmed to accept them as the norm. We grew up on stories about how the world always resolves issues through blood and destruction. We were shown movies where the hero absolutely must go through a battle. We were taught dates, battles, and the names of generals as if code was being written directly into our consciousness. And now, this scenario is repeating itself again. And we accept it easily because it was already familiar to us. Because we were trained for it in school. We know how the words global crisis sound. We have seen photographs of ruined cities in textbooks. We have heard stories of losses. As a result, when the system launches the next turn of the program, we are already prepared. We step into the role without resistance. We confirm the code ourselves with our acceptance. Yes, this is how it is supposed to be. But here is the catch. We were taught not how to exit the cycle, but how to survive within it. And as long as we agree to play by these rules, the code continues to work. There is only one way out. To stop waiting for repetitions and consciously rewrite the code. Not to live in the past, not to accept other people's stories as your own destiny, but to create your own. Until we change our consciousness, the cycle will spin indefinitely. But as soon as we realize that we are the authors of the script and not just extras, the circle will break. History has no power over those who have stepped beyond its borders. Thank you for being with me on this channel. I wish you the best possible branch of reality. Subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Take care.